Let us execute an immediate sweeping analytical vector shift away from multi-layered domestic captivity loops, weaponized mother-daughter relationship architecture, and the attic isolation matrices of contemporary suburban traps, and plunge straight into the high-octane calculation-heavy tracking grids of mid-century boarding house espionage loops, weaponized female solidarity frameworks, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an eccentric circle of female tenant assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a 1950s Washington, D.C. residential enclosure, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, trust-shattering deception matrix with the BRIAR CLUB, the exceptional, pulse-pounding historical suspense and psychological thriller masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed sovereign of elite multi-POV historical operations, complex wartime tradecraft, and high-velocity female-led puzzles, Kate Quinn. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, mysterious newcomer widow asset running a calculated community healing loop, a collection of deeply compromised female housemate assets running individual survival protocols, and an absolute defense against an encroaching McCarthy-era political executioner network collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged government security clearances, corrupt political witch hunts, and a deadly ring of active personal frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised boarding house ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated weekly dinner boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory informant network during the height of the Red Scare, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, mysterious young widow moves into a stuffy all-female boarding house and transforms the stray tenants into a fiercely loyal cabal until a shocking act of violence shatters their sanctuary, diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Quinn completely dominates the high-precision historical noir meets suffocating political sabotage puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Fiona Davis, Lisa Jewell, and Kristen Hanna, while treating realistic historical surveillance logistics, complex multi-perspective alignment arcs, and protective high-density psychological extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse assets, Grace March, an elegant, courageous newcomer, and her eclectic array of housemates at Briarwood House, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of historic personal trauma, intensive government surveillance logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a paranoid capitals database. Behind their rigorous weekly Thursday night supper parties, flawless civilian footprints, and tight communal kitchen schedule logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried high society friction, and sharp high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Their collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of trying to hide their respective vulnerabilities, ranging from illicit love affairs with married politicians and secret gangster family ties to hidden intellectual pursuits, their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from the House Un-American Activities Committee's active scanning perimeters, parsing complex behavioral shifts from their conservative landlady, and shielding their vulnerable mental sovereignty nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless domestic cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches their active scanning perimeter. A terrifying Thanksgiving dinner prologue logs a double homicide investigation active on the premises, complete with blood pooling on the communal floorboards and an anonymous baseline declaration of absolute betrayal. As the hostile countdown phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a multi-year rewind timeline shifting from 1950 to 1954, the boarding house's defensive layers begin to buckle under the weight of escalating proximity friction and political paranoia. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot when Grace's hidden past timeline begins testing the active psychological boundaries of her funnel border secrets, revealing that a ruthless government informant network is operating behind the polished smiles of their quiet neighborhood street. The standard boundaries of routine hospitality and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active invisible war behind the locked doors of Briarwood, where deceptive confidants masking their true tracking coordinates and a calculation-heavy political shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress each other's survival data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely completely active, transforming the large shared kitchens, dark hallways, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant hero assets are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to preserve their focus before an adversary's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes their boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep digital extortion loops, continuous political gaslighting, and persistent dominance to shatter their defenses, only to realize their hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of hidden files, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at their reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the mid-century elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Kate Quinn reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial political inquiry or managing a difficult personal disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and tyrannical supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with a devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark, possessive loyalty around their brooding female alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthrough shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated secrets have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, historical espionage noir, mid-century boarding house mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one uncovered political secret triggers a fatal Thanksgiving Day showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Quinn writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, expensive vintage perfume, fresh home-cooked stews, cold adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft, alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood hero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to the horizon. The BRIAR CLUB is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track